Welcome to the PharmaSource podcast. On today's podcast, I'm joined by Fabrice Le Garrec, who is the founder of the OSCIS Network. Previously, Vice President of Global Operations at companies such as Teva, ex-GSK, ex-McKinsey, Fabrice created the company as an alternative to what he saw in the big consulting companies. Now a network of over 100 experienced pharma professionals that provides performance transformation services. And I'm quite keen to get into and unpack exactly what you mean by that, performance transformation services. Fabrice, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So let's start off with you then, Fabrice, and your journey. Talk us through that, please, and some of those experiences and milestones along the way.
Well, I mean, my, let's say, red line throughout my career is basically how to improve company performance, leveraging the best approaches, methodologies out there. And you talk a lot of operational excellence or lean management. It's more than that. It's also change management. And it's really having developed and practiced and done this over and over again in my career that really gave me this credibility when you're talking about improving and sustaining the improvement of your company over time. Is really my DNA, and that's usually where, when I start discussions with COOs and SVPs of this world, this is where the key interest for them is how do we do this, right? How do we improve our performance and set up the right culture, the right conditions for people to join forces behind us and have this army of problem solvers, I always say. Yeah, not an easy journey, by the way.
Absolutely. So at Teva, for example, you were Global Operational Excellence VP, so working within big pharma organizations.
Yeah, no. So I mean, you learn by doing. You learn by trying several models, by adapting it to the culture of the company. There's no one size fits all, never. But there are a number of fundamental things that you have to have in place in order for your journey to a higher level of performance to be successful. And I could explain many things here, but I think it boils down to creating, on the one hand, the skills of your organization, because if you don't have the right level of skill to drive continuous improvement, you will either rely on just managers or external people, and that's not good. You have to internalize. I always say Toyota doesn't have an operational excellence department. The managers do that, and they are fully trained with their people extensively, and they practice it every day, right? So that's when it's embedded in your culture. And so skill is one thing, but then you have to create the will, and will is a lot about leadership. It's a lot about creating the conditions for people to be able to take care of improving their process to the next stage and so on, giving them time, giving them rewards, recognition, and being role models as well. And I think that creates the complexity of the journey. If I had to summarize, of course, it's complex. Many companies fail at doing that because they can't sustain the leadership as well. It's too much turnover. There is a problem with the continuity of the approach. People dream of making big changes in short amount of time, and it doesn't happen. You have to stick to a certain way of doing things over many years, and then you start to see the organization grow and be able to, this army of problem solver, to really start to make a big impact. But you have to invest in this.
And it's interesting, I think, that you mentioned Toyota there. Do you see them as being one of the benchmarks of what good looks like?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people sometimes come to me, but Toyota has some quality issues, maybe they're not that good after all. I said, no, guys, really? I mean, this is the cradle of what you should be doing as a company, right? The way they are developing the people, the way they are making sure. I was giving an example recently to a company, and I was asking them, what is the span of control of your supervisor in the production line? I say, well, yeah, 1 to 12 people, 1 to 15. We go up to 1 to 20, and they were very proud. I said, but Toyota is like 1 to 6, 1 to 7, and you know why they're doing that? It's because they want the supervisor to have time to drive continuous improvement every day. If you put 15 people that they have to supervise, 20 people, where is the time for continuous improvement? Where do you drive the next step of improvement? People have no time, right? So they have really tailored the system, the tools, the approach, the organizational structure for that culture to live and to be sustained. And I think, yeah, it's always a big inspiration to be able sometimes to compare and to see what these guys have been doing. Yeah, indeed. Even for the pharma industry, I think you have to make parallels, of course, but it's very, very interesting. How they, even down to HR, and how they do succession management. You cannot become a director or VP at Toyota. First of all, you grow through the ranks, and they see you over the years, and they only promote the ones who can maintain and sustain this culture, who can teach it as well. And many companies don't do that, right? A new leader comes in, and it's a new flavor of the month again. They don't have that consistency. I've been lucky to be there in the 90s, when I think automotive industry was in a similar setup. Like there were some big pharma players building their own car, making their own cars, and then a growing network of CDMOs, some becoming very powerful, and an excess capacity everywhere that drove new type of collaborations. The automotive CDMO started to take more and more of what the traditional car manufacturers were doing, even including the development of some of the products and the processes. So increasing the level of service they were giving to the automotive companies, and actually driving much better collaboration in order to reduce the cost or improve the margins. And I see some parallel links here with the pharma industry today, with a lot of excess capacity, the need to collaborate further, and a model that has to evolve. CMOs are incredibly skilled people. When you talk to some of these companies, they are actually better at what they do than some of the big pharma companies. And there is, I'm sure, it's mutually beneficial to integrate those teams closer, right? And be together on launching new products. Toyota was the first company ever that started to design new cars, and inviting their suppliers to their own development teams right from the beginning. So they knew that this component, for example, here it would be the drug substance would be done here, and they would invite these people because they wanted the product to be made in a way that was optimized from the beginning. So they needed the CMOs to collaborate in the development phase, so that right from the start we hit it's a right first time development together. And then the launch is easier because you've taken care of the limitations of the supplier, their particular equipment that so many times I've been in CDMO position. The pharma company has developed a product using their own equipment. They come to the CDMO, and it's a different set of equipment, and you have to redo all over again. It's complex. It costs a lot of money. So I think the mindset shift is going to happen. It has to happen in order for, let's say, the whole value chain to do better than they're doing today.
I think what you see again and again, certainly
Yeah,
within big pharma, is that often when a new leader comes in, they might have one of their favorite management consultants, which they might bring in,
yeah,
whether that's a company that you used to be part of, a McKinsey or a
yeah, yeah,
Deloitte
yeah.
or something like that. Having seen it from inside one of those big consultancies, how effective do you think that is? The general model of bringing in consultancy versus the, I guess, inside out model that you're describing at a Toyota.
Let's be honest, these people have been around for a long time, so they do bring value. They do bring the value of being quickly able to understand the big picture and then drill down to the key levers that will start to make a change in the company performance, the strategy,
Mhm.
etc., etc. So they're a big powerhouse. They are able to throw a lot of people at problems and corporate problems. The issue is always about sustaining that, and it's always about you know, being able to ensure that the capabilities are transferred, that the people on the ground have the time, the resource, the energy to carry on the big ideas, which usually are actually not coming from these big companies, consulting companies. The ideas are already there. They're with the people,
Mm.
but nobody has been able to articulate those into comprehensive messages, data set that the top management can listen or wants to listen. So at the end, these big companies are great at pulling all this together, creating a simple message with clear data set, pitch it to the top management, and get people to move to action. Right?
Mm.
So then that's a big piece, of course, because then they have everybody's attention, the board, the chairman, the CEO, boom. But then the transformation starts to happen, and then quickly the execution is the issue for them.
Mhm.
It's where it usually doesn't go well, and a lot of when they leave, in many cases, things fall right. So and that's where OSIX come in usually
Yeah.
because we have people that can actually sustain and do that on the floor with the companies.
Let's unpack a bit then that
Yeah.
phrase, performance transformation services. If you were to break that down, what does that look like?
First of all, it's bringing an expert, a content expert with consulting skills and change management skills,
Mhm.
who is going to be able to understand the current challenges in the performance, whatever it is, whether it's a quality process, whether it's a manufacturing process, supply chain, etc.
Mm.
Bring those skills, understand the current status, being able to map out with the company the next stage of the project, and then work with them on the ground on a day-to-day basis to make the necessary changes, train the people, sustain that. So it's really it's really a model where you do it with the people on the ground, with somebody credible that has been there, done that, and can really work besides the customer team. What we don't do at OSIX is come with people who have no idea or have very little credibility with the teams. We believe in a model where the client team should stay in control,
Mhm.
and then you bring in the right person in the right place to really uh, bring extra bandwidth and expertise to help them move faster on their major challenges, and it works. It's really a model that people like more and
Mm.
more, I would say. Yeah.
What would a typical customer be? Would it be a sort of a head of supply chain, for example? And what kind of problems would they be throwing at you?
Yeah, I mean, a typical customer is a VP or a site GM or a COO who calls us and say we have a major, ramp up issue on a in a factory.
Mm.
We're not delivering the output that we expected. We have huge bottleneck issues. The lines are breaking down. Do you have a few experts that could really come down, analyze, and bring the OEE to the next level, right? So that's really typical. If you translate that to quality, it could also be that we have major major gaps in our quality system. We are, falling behind in the way that we are addressing our major challenges. So it's really, I mean, you don't bring the kind of people we have and the seniority we have, you don't bring them to tackle a backlog of deviation. You bring them because you have a major business challenge, and it's preventing you from hitting, some of your biggest numbers. Either it's top line improvement, or it's your bottom line cost that you need to reduce. It can go all the way to headcount reduction efforts that has to be done and structured, doing it in a clever way, right? And helping the people find opportunities so they can naturally accept they can do it with less teams. And it goes all the way to helping big pharma launch major product on time, like we were doing, in the past during COVID-19 vaccine, where we were helping companies really reach volume in super fast way.
Let's talk about that then, because I believe you're involved with Lonza and the Moderna vaccine ramp up.
Correct.
Great
Yeah.
to learn a bit more about that. And like everyone at that period of time, the pressure was really on to move fast. So it'd be great to I learn a bit more about that, and if there's any lessons which can be applied to now as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, let's be honest. This was a very unconventional time, right? And again, there was no way we could succeed with the conventional mindset, especially conservative mindset that you can find in the pharma, risk averse. It was a time where every single hour would save lives, would prevent people from having the severe symptoms of COVID and die, right? So you had to take every single shortcut possible to, on the one hand, make sure you could provide the market with safe products that could do what they're supposed to do. And at the same time, make sure you were taking the right level of business risk in order to proceed with the commissioning, qualification, and validation of your processes, equipment, etc., plants in the fastest possible way, so that you could start hitting and running the first batches. So yeah, lessons learned. There were many, many. First of all, the complete alignment of governance, health authorities, vaccines, manufacturing companies, suppliers, was actually extraordinary. And I think when things are aligned like that, and everybody's going for speed and understand this is critical, it's amazing how decisions are made much more quickly.
Yeah.
And that everybody keeping that balance in mind, right? Where it was not a business of just throw anything out there, and no, it's all our responsible people, and there was no compromise on quality, never ever. But how you doing your quality validation process? There were many things that could leverage. For example, when you install 3 lines in a row, there are many protocols, and they are identical lines. Typically in pharma, you will have to do a full set of validation for every line. Here, you had to take shortcuts and say, well, the second line is identical. We're not going to redo exactly all the validation of the first line because, hey, this can be taken over. We can just copy and paste, and all this done with the approval of the authorities, right? I mean, and then you can start to save time and be launching those productions much faster.
The authorities, were they giving you more flexibility over that period of time than they would do anyway, or was it within the letter of the existing regulation?
No, the regulations did not change, but the flexibility and how to read regulation was flexed. Of course, they and you do that in full transparency. So there were calls every day between the vaccines manufacturer and the authorities, things that never happen normally, right? So you tell them in the situation you are in, you tell them your strategy, your rationale, and they tell you straight away, oh, we don't like that, that's not okay, or yeah, let's let's go. There is a little bit of a risk, but it's not a risk for the patient. It's more of a business risk that you're taking. But at the end, the patient is protected from anything going wrong. So because you have a number of analytical tests and quality control tests that make sure the product going out there is perfectly safe. Yeah.
Is that something which could continue longer term, do you think?
Well, it's hard for the authorities to mobilize themselves like that all the time, but it's certainly a good practice that. It's a good practice that I would encourage every company launching new products to do, is to stay in touch with the authorities, be transparent, communicate well enough, and challenge maybe sometimes the excess burden of some of these, the huge cost. I mean, to commission, do the CQV phase, we call it, of a new product, and all the PPQ. There are ways to simplify. There are many ways to make it much more faster for sure, but also avoid sometimes repeating things with a good rationale. You can certainly streamline when you have copy lines, or you have copy equipments. All of that were good learnings from the COVID-19 times, and actually new to many people, right? To challenge it that much, because we just didn't have time. There was plenty of money, but no time. So that constraint forced us to think very differently.
Any other advice you could share about how to get operational readiness and to deliver fast? What would you recommend?
Delivering fast puts huge stress on your people, right? So admitting you have a limited budget in any way, I think the first thing that you need to take care of is building capabilities fast enough. And you should not underestimate when you don't have access to the right resource. You really need to build the capability building center or something that will help your people learn and get trained fast enough, so that when you hit production, you have a limited number of deviations, you have a limited number of issues, because the people master what they're doing. They understand the machines, they understand the equipments, and that goes a long way for your ramp up acceleration. The second one is, I've seen the power of a very powerful PMOs, so project management officers, representing all functions, and having power over the functions to protect the lead time. That was the first time in my life I could see this in pharma, that the functions were told what to do by the PMO, and the PMO only goal was to protect the timeline, because timeline meant lives, and they were ruthless about that. I mean, like, you told me you would be on that date, there is a risk now, you're not going to do it. Find a way, what help do you need? And it was kind of reverse. Usually the PMO, kind of manage a timing plan, and the functions tell him, I'm going to be late. And that here it was, timeline was so critical that the PMOs of each function, each group, let's say, were connected in a network that was ultimately the guardian of the timeline.
That's
And that was
interesting.
very powerful.
And
By the way,
is that something which could exist, like, or could continue?
No, by the way, the PMOs, the reason they could do that, they also had one source of truth. So the importance of having one system, one major connected timing plan where all the functions feed into. So at any given time of the day, the night, you look up at this system, and what you see is the only source of truth, the latest timing, the latest risk. It's all in there in one place. How many companies are not doing that today? These guys work with Microsoft projects, and they don't have even plannings that are connected.
Yeah.
For COVID, that was a big differentiator. For me, it was an impressive having those kind of tools that manage everything, and nobody was authorized to use any other tool. It had to be one source of truth. Yeah.
Very interesting. Does Toyota do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot more companies are doing that because these solutions are coming on the market. Um, Toyota does that, and they also put in place what we call lean project management practices. They've been doing that ever since they launched the hybrid engine model 20 years ago.
Mm,
Their development, they have a war room, they call it Obeya room. So they have um, one source of truth, and they also have one area where everything is visually displayed. You know in 10 seconds where are the big issues on your program, where you are late, where you have the biggest red flags, and the combination of one source of truth and a great visual management makes it very easy, much easier to see. And if you can see, you can control. And if you can control, you can perform.
mm.
And you can do something about that, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's very important in high-speed projects to have this machine set up. And it's critical, absolutely critical.
Very interesting. Thank you. I wonder if we could turn your attention now to the world of contract manufacturing. You're speaking with us at CDMO Live in
Mhm.
May. I wonder what your perspective is on the state of the contract manufacturing market at the moment. Something that we've spoken about previously is how many CDMOs currently are looking at having empty plants. What's your sort of overview of the state of the industry right now?
It's hard to have one picture. I think it depends a lot on which modality, which type of
Hmm.
technology you're focusing on. I think some people have made earlier bets and which are probably beneficial to them. Others, they're seeing their kind of technology stall or not maybe developing as much as they thought. And that's, I want to say, the big challenge of CDMOs, right? If you don't have the capacity and the capabilities installed, even at the risk that your plant is empty, nobody's going to come to you because you have to have something to offer before somebody wants to contract to you,
Mm,
right? So a lot of CDMOs have taken that gamble. Even before COVID, it was already at the end of the last decade. And unfortunately, with harsh conditions of the biotech, they find themselves with a lot of capacity to sell
mm,
or available. And so that's for me one of the big thing out there today is that there is so much capability and capacity available at CDMOs that if you are able as a biotech company or pharma company to leverage that and work well with your CDMO partner, you don't really need to invest in your own assets unless you
sure.
want to de-risk and have. But honestly, today there's so much excess capacity everywhere, even plants that can be converted at a reasonable cost to be able to do new type of modalities.
Mm. You've talked about it
Uh,
being a buyer's market at the moment.
yeah, it's a buyer's market because you you obviously can can go to your CDMOs um, and probably negotiate very very good pricing for buying their capacity against a long-term contract, securing a long-term contract. I think CDMOs are a bit tired of short-term contract and security, or let's say unpredictability of the business they have. And if you have a long-term contract and you want to secure a CDMO, I'm sure there are extremely good deals out there to be done. There are many empty plants, let's be honest. So I would be surprised that CDMOs would not be interested in your business.
Hmm.
And so it's that's why I call it a buyer's market in the sense that I think they can they can really leverage that position to create a long-term mutually beneficial relationship. And again, I'm sorry, I'm quoting again Toyota, but the model of developing suppliers who are an extension of your company, with which you're going to develop strong, deep, solid relationship, helping each other out, um, is a is a very inspiring model. And I don't think pharma is doing that enough. CDMOs can do a lot more in helping big pharma reduce their costs, being more flexible. And I still don't see that happening enough.
Your experience, Fabrice, working within big pharma, consulting with it, and working across a wide range of clients, what would you see as being the recurring issues which you see time and time again, both from the perspective of operational effectiveness at the pharma company itself, and also in terms of how they work with, how they manage their external network effectively? What are those big issues which you see recurring again and again?
So operational effectiveness in big pharma, and I don't want to generalize, I think some people are doing better than others, but I think overall it's really about for me fundamentally the lack of creating this culture of continuous improvement and enabling people to simplify. If I take the COVID-19 case again, when you come with that new constraint of time, and suddenly people have crazy and tons of ideas on how things can be simplified and done faster. Why is it that this industry, except for being too rich, right? Why is it that this industry is not able to tap into this much more often? And I think there is a leadership responsibility there to instill this culture of permanently looking for. It's not cost reduction. How can we do things better, right first time? Not for just the company profit, but also for the patients. I mean, is it normal today that it takes, I don't know, 10 years to develop a new vaccine? I mean, people can develop a brand new car in 24 months, right? A car, I mean, it's a very complex piece of equipment with a lot of interface. And so they've mastered the continuous improvement mindset in order to speed up the launch of the product, and be cost effective when it goes to the market. Pharma hasn't got that mindset yet. And looking at how you can develop products, launch them faster, very efficiently, and drive the affordability of the products. I mean, in a better direction, quicker. I think this is really about creating this constant challenge, just like we have had in the COVID-19, and that's a leadership responsibility. That's a leadership responsibility to be stretching the organization to do more with less, in order for patients to access drugs in a more rapid way.
And what about in terms of working with external partners? So working with the CDMO network. But what advice would you have about how to do that more effectively?
I talked about this long-term relationship, right, and support. I think having those key partnership is for sure will break a lot on the mistrust, or let's say defiance, and bring people along to deliver value together. I know people talk a lot about that. When you look in detail, the amount of collaboration between CMOs and big pharma and is not as good as it could be, to really reduce the cost, and maybe because the system is not developed around that, and the level of integration between those partners was far greater in the automotive. It had to be far greater for the COVID-19 vaccine, for example. Transparency, working together, making sure that the products could be delivered on time. Everybody was really trying to win together, and so I think from a technical point of view, from a production point of view, from a supply chain point of view, that the collaboration, the sharing of the risk has to be better, the transparency has to be better, and big pharma have to be open to help develop CMOs as well. If I compare to Toyota was investing free consulting time with some of their best experts at their supplier base, going there days and days every year to really help them raise their game for the benefit of the whole value chain. So I'm not seeing this yet, and I think there is a long way to go, but the pressure on cost in the pharma industry, less and less blockbusters, a lot of challenges coming up front is actually driving us in the same direction. I am 100% sure that there will be a need to integrate much further the big pharma or the pharma companies and their CDMO and work a lot more in a long-term partnership.
Absolutely fascinating. Fabrice, merci de parler en anglais parfait.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a very, very interesting interview.
You're welcome, and have a great afternoon now.
Experience the future of contract manufacturing at CDMO Live 2025. Join us at the World Trade Center Rotterdam on May the 7th and 8th, 2025 for an exclusive event that brings together the sharpest minds in biopharma outsourcing. For 2 days filled with market insights, best practices and partnering. Early bird tickets are now available, so head to cdmolive.com to download the agenda and to book your ticket.